Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Rabbi Tamara Cohen, VP of Program Strategy for Moving Traditions, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this first Moving Traditions webinar of 5782 in honor of National Period Day, which was officially yesterday. As you likely know, we at Moving Traditions have been holding these national webinars for over a year now as part of our work of supporting you, adults mostly, and also teens, but adults in the lives of teens who are guiding Jewish preteens and teens through the joys and challenges of adolescence. We do this because our work is really based in partnership with you, and because we know that the values that we hold so dear, shleimut, personal wholeness, chesed, caring connection, and tzedek, justice, are ones that we all have to work together to manifest in the world. And what's exciting, one of the things that's so exciting about tonight's topic is we'll see how it really brings all these values together. So even though I've been a feminist for even longer than I've been a menstruator, I feel like I've changed already in reading Anita Diamant's excellent book, Period, End of Sentence, and watching the documentary film of the same name that preceded it, and in learning through my conversations with Orli and Dahlia, who you'll meet shortly. And it's made me feel bolder and more committed to menstrual justice. And I think that after this evening, you'll be in a similar place. I hope so. I've been thinking about the Asher Yatzar blessing, which is one of the morning blessings. Some people say it every single morning. Some people say it after they go to the bathroom. And it's a blessing that gives gratitude for all of our openings opening and all of our closings as they should. And I've taught this blessing many times. I have led it. And honestly, in doing so, I really never stopped to think when I talked about the remarkable openings of the body, that one of those remarkable openings of many of our bodies is the vagina. But now I'll be thinking about that. And I think perhaps if we start to do that, it will make a change. It really will. That prayer ends by naming God as a performer of wonders and a healer. And I hope tonight is a night also of some bringing us closer to healing and bringing us a step closer to really, truly honoring how wondrous the bodies of people of all genders are. Not disgusting, not shameful, not weird, not scary, but truly wondrous. And to help us get there, it's my pleasure to invite Anita Diamant to start us off. Anita.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you here. And I've enjoyed all of your books, or many of them over the years. And tell us how you came to write this one.
Well, I was actually invited. I had watched the Academy Awards ceremony where this movie, Period, End of Sentence, won for Best Short Documentary. And the director, when she got up to the podium, said, "I can't believe a movie about periods just won an Oscar." And I jumped off the couch. I thought it was amazing. And then the next day I watched the film, which won the Academy Award, and thought it was beautiful and wonderful, really well made. And a few weeks later, I think it was, I got a phone call from my agent. The Period Project people were in New York City, promoting the film, really, and they wanted to have a book that jumped off from the film and the messages that it contained. And so they were speaking with my agent, and she called and said, "Would you be interested in this project?" And I said yes right away. I don't usually say yes that fast to such a big an invitation. But so I started looking into it, talking to the folks at Period Project, the Period Project, the PAD Project, and liked them enormously. All Jewish women, by the way. Or many of them, not all, many of them are Jewish women. So I agreed to do this. And I entered without knowing a whole lot I had actually written a couple of op-ed kind of pieces about menstrual sequestration and the fact that in some parts of the world, women actually die because they are sent out from their homes, because there's this belief that if people are under the same roof as a menstruator, they will get sick, perhaps even die. So I thought I knew something about it. And then I started doing the research and realized what a big topic it was and how many aspects it has: medical, political, social, cultural, every which way. And I spent lockdown writing this book, on doing a lot of online research, talking to some people on the phone as well. And I learned a lot. So that's how I came to write.
There's a lot, thank you. There's a lot that's hard, and in the book and in the stories that you tell. And there's also a lot that brings hope. Can you share a little bit of each with us?
Oh, sure. Well, I think I started with the fact that that menstruation has been called the curse for a long time in many languages. And I think that term says it all, that there is something inherently wrong, threatening even, about the fact that if you have a body with a uterus and you menstruate, that you are cursed. And that in Christian tradition in particular, the sin of Eve, the curse of Eve, is connected to menstruation. And the fallout from that is profound, and it has very far-reaching consequences in all sorts of settings, and I will talk about them soon. The reason I was so hopeful about this project and what I learned and why it's so perfect for tonight is because I am inspired by the leadership of young people, particularly young women, who, when learning about menstrual injustice, simply aren't having it and are organizing and speaking out all over the country and around the world, not just in the United States, but in literally every continent, maybe not Antarctica, I don't know, but other than that, there are people working really hard from the grassroots and becoming organizers and making connections and making coalitions with other kinds of people and other kinds of the different aspects of menstrual injustice. So I feel like we're in good hands in this regard, and that our younger leaders are taking us to a much better place, much more rapidly than this conversation. This conversation has been going on for a long time, since the 1970s, but I feel like the speed of change is just like really ramped up. And here we are talking with high school students who are among those leaders.
Yes, we are. Before we turn to them, the vision of the menstrual justice movement, and perhaps you can just help us define that term. It includes a range of issues, as you said, that are not always seen as connected. Can you give us some examples of how it brings together a bunch of issues and the ways that they intersect?
Sure. It is, I think I now fully understand what an intersectional issue is. It's not all that complicated, but the term menstrual justice under that umbrella includes climate, includes environmental issues about products and getting rid of products in an environmentally smart way. It includes medical issues where people with uteruses who have pain their pain has been dismissed and told it's all in their heads, even though many of those people have had serious medical consequences as a result of it. So medical education, people of color in particular, if they have a medical problem around this, have been really denied. There are just shocking examples of doctors just saying to Black women in particular, or believing that Black people don't suffer pain the same way that white people do. If you are homeless, if you are incarcerated, if you are a refugee, menstruation becomes a monthly crisis. It can be a monthly crisis. So that kind of injustice, all those injustices of poverty, of warfare, and of homelessness, they all intersect here as well. Water is a big issue that is connected to menstruation. One needs clean running water in order to take care of oneself and wash one's hands and wash one's products and get rid of them. Safe bathrooms are also an issue. If you're in a refugee camp and you can't lock the door, it becomes a real issue there as well. So that list goes on, and all of them connect to here in what you would think is just a personal issue, but it's not.
Thank you. Throughout the book and even now, you've been kind of going back and forth between talking about women and talking about menstruators. Can you say a little bit about why?
Sure. There has been some controversy about using the word menstruator. There are some women who feel that denies the fact that menstruation is largely an issue that concerns women and girls, and so they're angry that being erased. They think they're being erased by using the word menstruator. On the other hand, not all women menstruate. Not all menstruators are women or don't identify as women. So it is a more inclusive term, menstruator. So in the book, I use them both. I use them all, and not to make everybody happy. I'm sure it will make everybody unhappy in that regard. If you're on one side of that,
you can't do that.
You can't make everybody happy. But no. In order to, I think for menstruators, including those who don't identify as female or as women or as girls, they are the victims of misogyny and patriarchy, because menstruation is so closely identified with the female and with the female body. So I use them not interchangeably, but I employ both terms, women and girls and menstruators, in the book.
Thank you.
I honor both positions. I don't think one's right or one's wrong.
Thank you. I thought it worked very elegantly. All right, so we're going to pause now to take a look at the first video that Orli and Dahlia have put together as part of their Kol Koleinu project, and then we'll have an opportunity to speak with you.
Hey everyone!
I'm Dahlia.
I'm Orli.
And we're Periods and Me, Menstruation Education.
This video is going to be all about what to do when you get your period. We'll be talking about signs that you're getting your period, what you should do when you get it, the different products you can use, and lastly, some of our tips and tricks for dealing with your period. Let's get into it. So when can a person expect to get their period?
If you have a biological parent who gets periods, a good range is plus or minus 2 years from when they got their first period. The general ballpark range is from about 8 to 15, but there are cases outside of that age range all the time.
There are also some biological signs a person is getting their period. They may experience cramps, bad headaches, mood swings, or have white discharge, called leukorrhea, but everyone is different.
So what happens when you actually get your period?
Yeah, one day you'll be in the bathroom, pull down your pants, and see red or brown discharge. This is your period.
An important thing to do is to tell an adult you trust, or an older sibling. Sometimes it's easier to tell someone who also gets periods, but even those who don't get periods can totally help you.
Lastly, here are some of our period tips and tricks. If you're prone to cramps, start taking medication right when you get your period, before you get the cramps.
Heating pads also help with cramps.
There are pads that are specifically for sleeping that are more absorbent and therefore last longer.
Make sure you're eating and drinking enough and you're nourishing your body. Keep track of what foods make you feel better and what foods make you feel worse. There are some common examples of foods on our website.
Make yourself a little period kit that has period products, medication, and whatever else you'll need if you get your period. Keep a little kit with you wherever you go, even before you get your period. You always want to be ready and be able to help a friend.
Doing yoga and going on walks may also help, although sometimes being active hurts, so listen to your body and do what makes you feel better.
Last tip is that once your period is regular and you know roughly when you're going to get it each month, or you have a period tracking app, wear a panty liner the day before in case you get it earlier than expected.
We hope that helped. You can find more tips and tricks and other information on our website. We will link it in the description box below.
Thanks for watching this video. See you next time.
I just love that. Thank you so much, Orli and Dahlia. And The entire video will be linked on our website as you're getting your website up. So we will, yes, I know, I wish I had it too. So Dahlia, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you made this video for, why you two decided to make it, and how did you become interested in this topic in the first place?
Well, so we were part of the Kol Koleinu fellowship, and that's sort of how we met. And we were both really interested in this topic because we had heard a lot of stories about, like, you know, kids who had no idea what a period was, and then they got their periods and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, I don't know what's happening, I don't have the information that I need in order to feel okay about this. And then also we had both had other experiences, more personal experiences, like in middle school I was in a math class and I was getting really passionate about my answer, and I had gotten a different answer from this kid, and I, you know, I really was passionate about it. And he turned to the person next to him and he said, maybe it's that time of the month. And I had never gotten my period before. And I just felt so belittled and so, like, I was, of course, mad, but also I sort of came to the conclusion that he really just didn't know what a period was and what that meant. And so we sort of took those experiences and decided that we needed to educate young people, not just people who get periods, but people like that boy in my math class, about what periods are. And so we decided to create a website and a series of videos, which are mostly still in progress, about periods, and sort of a hub of information about menstruation for and by young people.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I find it so powerful, and also brings in that how much menstrual stigma is also about how girls with passion and women can be treated. Orli, I'm sure there are some parents on this webinar who really want to know what to say and what not to say, other than showing your video or passing it along. Can you share with us a little bit about how you first learned about periods, what role your parents played, and what role you think parents should play?
Yeah, I first learned about periods because I think, probably my mom sat me down and, gave me a book, and I asked questions, and, I was relatively young. And then we had our first puberty talk at school in 5th grade. And I remember this very clearly. They split us up between girls and boys. And we had this puberty talk at different times. And of course they taught us, it was 2 hours, and they had us ask questions and, write down. We were in 5th grade, so I'm not really sure what we could have, we probably had lots of questions. But I was always wondering, what they told the boys. And I still actually don't know, but it was weird to me why we were separated, because, we're all humans, and it's important to learn about things that don't particularly concern you, or that don't happen specifically to you, because they'll still affect you in some way, right? They'll still, most likely you're going to interact with somebody who gets periods. And if you were never taught, what a period is, then you'll have a similar reaction to the boy in Dahlia's math class. So I was particularly surprised why they split us up. And then back to my parents and coming home, I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that just this is a thing that should be talked about with everybody. And so I've really made it a point to make sure that both of my parents are people who I can talk to when I'm having my period. So, whether that's, saying, oh, I'm not feeling well today, I'm on my period, I'm just going to go lie down, to both my parents or my brother, making sure that my younger brother knows that I'm not feeling well, or sending my dad out to get pads or whatever I need from the store. I think it's really important to make sure that, that whoever you are, whether you get periods or not, you're there to help. And then, because then you can help other people. And it's always appreciated, the support that anyone can give, to people who get periods. And so that's why I think it's important to teach even people who don't get periods what they are, because then everybody can help.
Thank you. Thank you. Anita, come back into the conversation. We'll welcome you back into the conversation and continue with all of us. I know that there are also probably a bunch of Jewish educators, rabbis, Bar Mitzvah teachers, Rosh Chodesh, Shevet, and Salem group leaders on this call. And certainly that's part of why we are here in this context. So what's the role, do you think, of Jewish educators in those different kinds of roles in breaking through period stigma, or in continuing to uphold it? How have you seen either of those things? And what would you like to see?
I just want to praise and thank Orli and Dahlia for what they said. Dahlia recognizing that she must be that time of the month, realizing that that's not an appropriate thing to say at however age you were, and Orli the same, wondering why the boys were in a separate room from the girls, understanding that there's something, why is that happening? Those are insights that are relatively recent. I mean, there have been a few people over the years bringing that up, but for you as young women, as young teenagers, to be able to say that means that the conversation has really shifted. And I think it's important. I really think it's important, having talked to health educators, that everyone's in the room at the same time, because we all need this information. Absolutely. Also, if you divide them by obvious gender differences, that kids who don't identify or are still trying to figure out who they are in terms of gender, they have to figure out what room they go to, and that the information they want to know about isn't available to them. And it also means that, as you were talking about boys and brothers, that there's no language for them. They don't know how to talk about this. So when your teachers, whether they're your Hebrew school teachers or your school teachers or any adults that you're with, they need to be able to talk to you. But you are leading in this. I really think that's true. I think it's important to put it in Jewish settings as well, because it is, I mean, you started talking, Rabbi, about the sanctification of the human body. And without menstruation, there's no human life. And there are cultures that really acknowledge that when somebody starts menstruating, it means continuity, means the tribe continues. It means that we should celebrate this.
Orli and Dahlia, I know you both have been in Rosh Chodesh, which is also a gendered space for a bunch of years. How do you think, and I know, Dahlia, you've been thinking about doing more conversation about Rosh Chodesh, about periods into Rosh Chodesh. Why would that be a place that you would want to talk about periods?
Well, I think
for either of you, yeah.
Rosh Chodesh is a place where I've felt comfort in talking about sort of like my struggles and sort of the way that I'm perceived, like because of my body. And so I think that that's maybe not as much of a space that I should be taught what a period is, but more of a space where I can talk to just people around me who understand and take it to a new level of saying, you know, what can we do to help? What can we do to change this? And, you know, a place where we can talk about our struggles and like kind of bond over the experience.
Thanks. Dahlia, anything you want to add?
I totally agree with what Orli said. And also I think it's important to not just have this conversation in Rosh Chodesh groups, but also in Tselem and Shevet groups. And like sort of what Anita was saying, making sure that that everybody feels comfortable having that conversation and being a part of talking about menstruation is really important, and especially as a way to sort of shift the stigma. So yeah.
But let me just also say that you, as if you go into your Horosh Chodesh group and you bring this up, there very well may be somebody in the room for whom this is the first time that's been talked about publicly. So you get to be a teacher, you get to be a model of the opposite of stigma, the opposite of shame, being comfortable with your body and being outraged at the stigma and shame that some people are subjected to. So you are in fact teachers in that regard.
Yeah. Thank you. That's Orli and Dahlia. We also talked a little bit about like where this would come up, or would it come up in the course of Hebrew school, or if you're doing Parshat Shavua, the monthly portion, and you get to some of the troubling parts of our tradition, of the way that the menstrual taboos within our tradition and within the Torah. Have you had the experience of that being an opportunity for discussion and learning and challenging some of those pieces of our tradition?
Yeah. I remember when I was in like Hebrew school, we, we're doing a parsha of the week, and it came to the part where they talk about periods. And I only put this together more recently, but they were talking about like a disease that only women get once a month, or something like that. I think that's how it was framed, or like a something that made women dirty. And I sort of put that together recently, and I was, they were talking about periods, which is fascinating. And so I think it's important to just be honest with kids, and not make them think that it's anything that's dirty or a disease. It's important to just teach kids like biologically what's going on, open discussions, and not straying away from difficult topics.
Yeah, thank you. So Dahlia, I know you're continuing for a second year of your Kol Koleinu fellowship. Can you share with us a little bit more about how it was that you worked on this, the role of your mentor, of getting to work with a partner, and what's your vision for continuing with this project?
So we actually didn't really want our project to be specifically Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And
tell us why.
We thought that was sort of limiting. Not that we shouldn't talk about periods in Jewish spaces, but more that this was sort of a conversation that needed to be more far-reaching. So the thing that the fellowship sort of helped with was realizing that maybe our project wouldn't necessarily be a Jewish project, but we could bring a lot of our own Judaism into it, and it was sort of Jewish in its way, and like learning from our peers about how Judaism and menstruation come together, and what Jewish laws say about menstruation and that sort of thing were really helpful in realizing how much this affected us personally, and that gave us a drive to keep going. And also we had a great mentor named Michaela who also brought in some Jewish resources, but helped us like decide what avenue we wanted to choose for creating this project, and sort of like pinpointing what topics we found most important to cover in it. So now I'm hoping that we get to continue to finish creating our website and making more videos. And I think we also were talking about adding some resources about like periods around the world, and what that entails. And then also the video that we shared today was more geared toward people and preteens who will or have gotten their periods. And we want to create more resources for all people and youth who don't get periods and who don't really know what to do when talking about it.
Thank you. I can't wait. There's a part in the book, Anita, where you talk about how menstrual products should be as ubiquitous as toilet paper. What do you all think about that? And is this a radical idea, or why is it not an idea that takes a moment? Like, why is it an idea that takes a moment to really click?
Well, I think we live in a world where there's toilet paper available in public spaces, where there are facilities, and I remember hearing a high school student talking to a gentleman who said, "Well, why don't you just carry it with you? I don't understand." And she said, "Are you carrying toilet paper with you?" And he said, "No." And it's definitely one of those hit your head on the forehead, hit your forehead and go, "Yeah, why not?" I mean, what it really means, what it says is that the world, the public, is for men or for people who don't menstruate, and that women are a special category and it's up to them to take care of themselves, because are we not supposed to be there? It strikes me that it erases us, actually, and insisting on that we are here and that this is not a luxury, this is a necessity, just like toilet paper, is claiming our space, claiming ourselves as human beings in the world, in the larger community. And this is starting to happen. California just passed a law, I think in the last week or so, mandating period products in all schools, elementary through university, through public universities. And this is happening state by state. And a lot of it's happening thanks to student activism on campuses, all kinds of campuses, little bitty ones and giant state universities, the Ivy League, parochial colleges, all sorts of schools. This is happening because the girls and the women in those places say, we're here and this is a necessity. And it's not a special case. We're not special cases. We're half the population. And they should be in all the bathrooms, actually. And as more and more bathrooms are, I was in public space today where it's stalls only versus stalls and urinals only, and that means there should be period products in all of those bathrooms as well. I mean, it pushes the fact that women are in the world and that our bodies, as different as they are from men's, are part of the human race and they need to be attended to. And it's not a matter of asking anymore. I feel it's like we don't have to go hat in hand. We are rabbis, we are teachers, we are senators, we are the vice president, we are on the Supreme Court. We are in public, and we need these things in the bathroom the way we need toilet paper in the bathroom.
So also this connects to the issue of period poverty and the high costs, the amount of money that a menstruator spends throughout their life on products, and the places where there is what's called a period tax. Is that also one of the issues that you're thinking about? Are there schools and institutions?
Well, there's no special tax on period products, but sales taxes are, the cities and states in particular decide what products get taxed and what don't get taxed. And menstrual products and diapers too, have been taxed in places where hunting licenses are not taxed, and where Mardi Gras beads are not taxed, but tampons are. So someone is making a choice here of what's essential and what's not essential. So again, these are state by state and to some extent city by city, because some cities levy taxes on these things, decisions. And the only reason they change is because people ask for it, demand it, put it on the docket, talk to their legislators, talk to their city councilors, and push. And more, this is no longer such a weird, fringy thing. It's becoming more and more common all over the world. I just read also in Ontario, the whole province of Ontario is about to have period products in all the schools. And in Ireland, for example, they passed a law that all public buildings need to have period products in them, not just the schools, but libraries and municipal buildings and courthouses. And slowly but surely, this change is happening in terms of access. And when people say, well, who's going to pay for this? The answer is whoever pays for the toilet paper.
Orli and Dahlia, what about in your schools? I know, Dahlia, you said in your school you didn't even have health class that explained periods.
No, I mean, the most that we had was like learning about the anatomy of a body in biology class. And even in our school bathrooms, I mean, there are boxes with tampons and pads, but there are never any products actually in them. So that's another thing is, you know, once you do put products in bathrooms, you have to actually continue to put products in bathrooms and actually like make sure that you're not just pretending like, you know, you're supporting these people.
Actually,
yeah, I was really shocked to hear that, like, you both go to school in New York City and public schools, and one of them has health class and one of them, you know, didn't even teach you that. And just so, like, if us parents are sitting thinking, well, we don't have to do this, or we don't have to talk about this in our community because they're getting it in public school, we can't count on, we really cannot count on that. We know that that's true about so much of sexuality education, and this too. So yeah.
Thinking about putting out products, this is one of those, everyone can do this. You should put out products in your bathroom, on the vanity where you have guests, so people see that they're out there, and it models the fact that, oh yeah, this should be in all of them. And if you're affiliated with a synagogue, the synagogue bathrooms, all of the synagogue bathrooms should have period products, not just when there's a wedding or a bar bat mitzvah, but all the time, and they should be free. And this, the more that people do this, the more that becomes normalized. It normalizes menstruation. It normalizes the presence of menstruators in the world. And it sounds like a small thing, but it's really, it's a shift. It's a big cultural shift. And all of us have to do something.
Yes. Orli, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I mean, at my school, similarly to Dahlia's, like, the baskets never actually have any products in them. And a little story that I'm now remembering is that, you know, it's always like you have to hide the tampon up your sleeve when you're walking to the bathroom. Like, you know, you raise your hand, leave class, grab it from your backpack. Like, there's always these things. And I remember probably in seventh grade probably, I didn't have a tampon and I needed one. And so, you know, I whispered to my friend, she didn't have one. And so then I was just like, I needed a tampon. So I'm asking my friends in class, they were like telling me to be quiet, like, oh yeah, like I have one, but, you know, like just come over here, like pretend you need help on the question and, you know, I'll slide you one. And I just remember like thinking that was ridiculous, that this was a thing I needed. And why should I have to, you know, have all these schemes to, you know, slyly put a tampon in my pocket. And so I've made a point to just walk down the halls of my school openly holding whatever I need just to go to the bathroom, because I think it normalizes it. And, you know, making sure that people see that. And, you know, I'm not ashamed that someone will know that I'm on my period because it's a normal thing. And making sure that people see that is important.
How did that happen? That you started to do that? Was it from the beginning?
I think more as I got older, and maybe like after 2 or 3 years of having my period, I just realized this is dumb. Why am I hiding this part of my life? It's 5 days a month. That's a very long time in comparison to my life. Like, I shouldn't have to be affected by this. And then seeing the way that my friends, like, how in their lives they never talk about periods with their dads, and thinking that that's crazy. And so trying to show my friends how, you know, you don't have to be ashamed, and just like teaching each other and helping each other like come out of our little boxes and, you know, normalizing it.
It's great. It's inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. I want to open up for questions. Yes, great. So there's one question here. What do you think is the best way to provide period products for menstruators who may not feel comfortable using a women's bathroom?
They should be in all the bathrooms. So that means all the bathrooms. I think what tends to happen is people focus on getting them into the women's bathrooms. And on a lot of campuses, people have advocated for putting them in all the bathrooms, all gender, the girls and the boys, the men's and the women's. There's pushback from that. A lot of men and boys get angry. I don't know why. They feel, and they'll throw them away, and they'll throw them on the floor. It's going to take, it is a shift, and it's going to take time. So the way you get around that is to make sure they're in all the bathrooms all the time. And we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, great. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, at my school, they only have them there's 5 women's bathrooms in the school and 5 men's bathrooms, and 1 gender neutral bathroom. And the period products are in 1 of the 5 women's bathrooms. So you have to go from the 4th floor down to the 2nd floor if you want to get one, or you have to go to the nurse's office. And so something I'm always thinking of is somebody who doesn't feel comfortable using a women's bathroom but gets periods, having to go to the nurse's office to get a tampon or a pad, how that must feel. And so I'm always thinking, why can't they just be in a men's bathroom? Like, why is that so hard? Or even the gender neutral bathroom, like that sounds like such an easy fix, and yet no one's making that effort.
I just want to also say that in a lot of schools, it's just the nurse's office. And in many, many schools, it's the nurse herself who has to buy the pads out of her own pocket because it is not subsidized by the school. So that's who it is. And then it also, what it does is medicalize something that's not a medical problem. Why should you have to go to the nurse? This is normal. This is healthy. You don't need a Band-Aid. This is just a product that you need. And I can't tell you the number of school nurses I've heard from saying, when I run out, what do I do? I mean, they feel awful, but it shouldn't be their job to supply these. So I'm so sorry that there's only 1 bathroom in your school with supplies. One of my favorite stories from the book is also about a bathroom, and that's there were some students, middle school students, somewhere in the Midwest. They were very careful about not saying exactly where it was, who asked their principal, so they wanted to put period products in the bathroom free. And he said he didn't want to do that because people would take advantage. And the girls didn't buy that answer, but what they decided to do was they went home and baked cookies that looked like tampons with red frosting and strings on the end, and they put them on Twitter, and it got shared a gazillion times, and they mortified the principal. Found out about it, the parents found out about it, and lo and behold, there were suddenly period products in the bathroom. He saw but the idea that somebody would be taking advantage of the use of products. If somebody needs products that badly that they're taking for home, maybe they have sisters, maybe there's not enough money in the family budget. And people have been stealing toilet paper, by the way, for a long time if they can't afford it either. So I just took, again, real creative answers to ridiculous ways of doing things. The fact that you are walking down the hall with your tampon, Orli, is such a breakthrough. And for people who are older than you, I think we're in awe of that. And the fact that you're so matter of fact about it is why I'm so hopeful about
absolutely.
generation.
Yeah, I think that the whole issue of free, like what's free in schools and what we're expected to take care of ourselves, it really is, it just, for me, shows how deeply cultural ingrained it is that this is a private thing. It's something you have to put up with and you have to plan for and you have to do. And it's not part of the public good in that way that, like, we don't think about toilet paper. There's a great question in the chat about where this taboo came from and has it always been there. Anita, do you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, well, it's very ancient, and it's in every on every continent, and it goes way, way back. And there is this notion that the ancient Greeks believed that a menstruating woman would would dull a knife, would turn wine into vinegar. And those kinds of beliefs have persisted a lot for a long time. Actually, there was an article in The Lancet, which is a British medical journal, in the 70s, saying that a menstruating woman, if she had a permanent wave, her hair wouldn't take it because she was menstruating, and it's somehow that. So it's not so old.
And it's in rabbinic literature.
Yeah. So it's it's very old. There are some cultures, particularly indigenous and nature culture, indigenous and cultures that did and have continued to celebrate when a girl gets her period, and the whole community celebrates. It's not private, it's not a secret. Again, it's a celebration because there's continuity, and a lot of these cultures that includes Native Americans and Maori in New Zealand and other indigenous cultures. They were, as white people colonized them and Christianized them, these were seen as backward and dirty, and they had to be stamped out, and they had to be civilized because these weren't civilized. But what's happening now in these places is that people are reclaiming these customs and these traditions, making them contemporary, and also connecting them to their indigenous beliefs and practices, which is really beautiful. Since we don't have that kind of tradition, really, it's up to us to create new ones, to create new traditions that feel right to us now. It's hard to invent customs, but we need to be figuring out. I think Orli and Dahlia, I'm sure you can come up with what would be appropriate, and that might be a small thing, but it still is a way of saying, yes, this is happening. This is a good thing, and I am now on a new part of my life. I'm in a new part of my life.
Yeah, Anita, you also talked about how in some Sephardi families there's a little bit more honoring of the moment.
It's sort of unspoken, but a friend of mine who grew up in a Sephardic family, when she got her period, all of a sudden she was allowed to do the dishes with her older cousins, and she said that sounds like, why would you want to do that? But because then she was included in their conversations. She was now considered old enough to be trusted. Also, her grandmother invited her over for cafe in the afternoon, and she was sort of acknowledged as a woman in that regard. So that's a kind of a sweet one. And I know families where flowers are given to somebody who gets their period, or special mom takes someone out to lunch, you miss a day of school, some sweet, personal, meaningful exchange of a nod that this is a change in your life, and it's also a change in your family's life because you're on a new stage of your life. So I look forward, Orli and Dahlia, when perhaps you become parents and you have a menstruator, what you're going to do and how you're going to talk to your daughter, probably, and
or long before that, a camp counselor.
Camp counselor, mother, that they're so important.
Or older,
or younger, or
thoughts of what you think would be the right thing to do.
Your cousins, right? Whatever you think, and it doesn't have to. I mean, I think a lot of moms want to make more of it than their daughters want. I have friends who wanted to have a big dinner party, and all their adult women friends would go around the table and say something to their daughter, and not everybody wants to do that. Not all 12 and 13-year-olds are particularly excited about that option. So it has to come from, I think it has to come from the new menstruator, actually, rather than as we create this new acknowledgement. And in Judaism, we don't have an acknowledgement for a first period, do we? We don't, and we don't have an acknowledgement for the end of nursing.
There certainly have been blessings that have been written. Dahlia and Orli and I we were talking a little bit about those, and whether that feels like something that you would want a blessing to say, or a ceremony. When I was 13, I went to a ceremony of a friend of mine outside with older women in the dark, and it has stayed in my mind. But I was quite happy that what my mother did was give me a few books and not have a ceremony.
Yes.
So I just think this is both about what's your relationship to new ritual,
right.
And what kind of moment it is, and what kind of moment it is between parents and the menstruators.
Right. And not that many years ago, bat mitzvah was a kind of edgy, weird thing. It's standard. It's been feels like it's from Sinai now, right? We've always had there's B mitzvah, right? And that includes everybody, but not so much 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And who knows what it's going to be in 70 years from now, what kind of, maybe something will feel right for lots of people, but we don't know yet.
So there's some interesting things in the chat about period underwear, which you do talk about in the longer version of your video. So they talk about all the different options of what to do and go through it really nicely and clearly with the same kind of matter-of-fact approach. And some conversations about vandalism, which I'm going to say is a larger thing and a larger piece about how we're still dealing with sexism and misogyny and also whatever. It's a hard time in school right now. Orli and Dahlia, is there any last things you want to say before we bring this to a close? What do you want to, how do you want to see things be different if your website is totally successful and lots of people are watching your video? What difference will it make?
Well, I just want everyone to be comfortable talking about this with whoever. I think as you would talk about anything else, just making sure that everyone feels comfortable, not just with half of the population, but with the entire population. It's very important.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Just talk about it. Like, let's not make it this weird thing, this like scary thing that we don't talk about. Just making sure that everyone's a part of the conversation is so important. So
thank you for leading the way. And it's been great to have this intergenerational Jewish feminist conversation. And I want to bring into it now Jennifer Analik, who directs the Kol Koleinu Fellowship and worked closely with Orli and Dahlia last year, to end our evening with a few words of blessing. After the blessing, take a moment to open your email, give us feedback about tonight's program, buy Anita's book, watch the video. Right now it's on our website. Eventually they'll have their website. Share it, post it, and perhaps make a contribution in honor of Orli and Dahlia and the next feminist fellows who are going to be sharing their own brave visions of gender justice with us soon. Jen.
Thank you, Tamara. And it's been such a pleasure to work with Orli and Dahlia and to see their work evolve. So impressed and so proud of both of you. So I have a blessing to close this evening. And as I read my blessing, and maybe even afterward, I encourage anybody who has a wish or their own blessing to put that into the chat. May we accept our bodies and all they do to keep us alive. May we celebrate one another, each of us created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God. May we raise up teen activists like Orli and Dahlia, who are working toward justice and wholeness, toward a world where people of all genders are treated with kindness, dignity, and respect.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a very good night. I see a lot more questions just came in here. So maybe we'll be here for a few more minutes. And I welcome you to figure out how to be allies. I think we got some great ideas tonight, and there will be some more on our website, including some great links from Repair the World about how you can do activism and service around ending menstrual poverty, period poverty in your communities. So have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.